The Galactic Confederation ships arrived without warning, massive structures of gleaming metal that dwarfed humanity's orbital stations.
They hung in Earth's sky for 3 days before making contact, giving humans time to panic, prepare, and finally, wonder. On the 4th day, they spoke. Their message, transmitted in perfect English and every major Earth language simultaneously: "We come in peace and fellowship."
Ambassador Tay stepped onto Earth soil at the United Nations Plaza in New York.
The insectoid Sylvan diplomat stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and a carapace that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. Behind him stood a delegation of 6 other species, all members of what they called the Galactic Confederation.
President Kim greeted them with careful dignity.
He was a cautious man who had risen to power through calculated diplomacy, not bold action. Now he faced something no human leader had prepared for. "Welcome to Earth," he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Tay studied the offered hand with compound eyes before carefully taking it in his upper right appendage.
"Your species shows remarkable creativity," he said.
"We have observed your art, your music, your architecture. So much diversity from such a young civilization."
The first meetings went well.
The Confederation representatives spoke of galactic peace, shared knowledge, and Earth joining a community of over 30 spacefaring species. They showed holographic displays of magnificent worlds, technology centuries beyond human achievement, and the promise of instantaneous travel between stars. Earth's population watched these meetings with a mixture of hope and suspicion.
Street celebrations broke out in major cities. Religious leaders debated what alien life meant for human faiths.
Military commands around the world remained on high alert. On the 5th day, the Confederation presented their formal invitation. Earth would become a protected associate member of the Confederation. In the private meeting room adjacent to the General Assembly Hall, President Kim and his advisors reviewed the terms. The document seemed simple enough: Earth would receive technological assistance, protection from hostile entities, and limited representation in Confederation matters. Defense Director Park, a woman with 30 years of military experience and eyes that missed nothing, leaned close to the president.
"These aren't alliance terms, they're vassalage conditions," she whispered. "Look at Section 12. We would need permission to develop certain technologies. Section 23 restricts our right to colonize beyond Mars without approval." The president frowned. "Perhaps they're being cautious. We are newcomers."
"Or perhaps they don't want competition," Park replied. "Notice how they've offered medical and comfort technologies, but nothing that would help us travel independently between stars or develop new weapons."
2 weeks of negotiations followed. Each day, Earth's representatives pushed for more equitable terms.
Each day, the Confederation representatives politely refused major changes, offering only minor concessions.
Then came the summit.
Held aboard the Confederation flagship in Earth orbit, representatives from Earth met with delegates from 15 Confederation worlds.
It was meant to be ceremonial, Earth's first introduction to the galactic community.
Jun, a young diplomat from the Korean Peninsula, had been selected for his brilliant mind and fresh perspective. During the formal presentations, as each Confederation species explained their role in the galactic order, Jun noticed a pattern. When his turn to speak came, he deviated from his prepared remarks. "I noticed that newer species seem to have fewer rights within the Confederation structure. Some members have been part of your organization for thousands of years yet remain without full voting privileges.
Can you explain this hierarchy?"
The room fell silent. The Sylvan representatives' bioluminescent patterns flashed rapidly, their equivalent of whispering among themselves.
Ambassador Tay stepped forward. "Young species require guidance. This is for universal stability and safety. Your question demonstrates why humans need time to mature before understanding galactic governance." Jun refused to back down. "We've governed ourselves for thousands of years.
We've made mistakes, but we've learned from them.
Shouldn't a true confederation treat all members as equals?" That evening, the Earth delegation was politely but firmly returned to the planet's surface.
The summit ended a day early. Within a week, Confederation ships began establishing permanent positions in Earth orbit. Their explanation: observation posts to facilitate cultural exchange. Director Park's surveillance team reported that the ship's sensor arrays were mapping Earth's defense systems, not cultural landmarks. In a closed Security Council meeting, she presented her findings.
They're not here as friends or even equals.
At best, they see us as children to be controlled. At worst, as resources to be managed. President Kim stared out the window at the distant gleam of Confederation ships visible even in daylight. Then we must be very careful children indeed, he said.
And perhaps grow up faster than they expect.
5 years after first contact, the relationship between Earth and the Galactic Confederation had grown cold. The initial excitement of meeting alien life had faded, replaced by growing distrust. Admiral Hannah stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station Unity, watching the Confederation monitoring vessel that had been stationed above North America for the past 3 months. She was a tall woman with short-cropped hair and eyes that had seen too many conflicts. Before the aliens came, she had commanded United Nations peacekeeping forces.
Now she led Earth's Unified Defense Initiative.
They've changed position again, said Captain Lee, her second-in-command, pointing to the holographic display.
Third time this week. Hannah nodded.
And each time, they aligned their main sensor array with a different defense installation.
The Confederation had placed 12 such observation posts in Earth orbit.
They claimed these ships were there for scientific research and cultural exchange.
But Admiral Hannah knew better.
2 days later, she stood before the United Earth Security Council in the underground chamber beneath Geneva. The room was silent as she presented her findings. They claim to be observing, but their sensor arrays are clearly mapping our defenses, she reported, showing detailed scans of Confederation ship movements.
They're creating a complete picture of our capabilities. Council President Munn looked troubled. Can we block their scans?
No, Hannah replied.
Their technology is too advanced. But we can mislead them. Earth scientists had not been idle in the years since first contact.
Despite Confederation restrictions on technological development, human researchers had made remarkable progress by studying the alien ships themselves. At the Advanced Physics Laboratory beneath the mountains near Seoul, Dr. Jean led a team of scientists who had reversed-engineered elements of Confederation technology. Their greatest breakthrough came in the field of gravitic manipulation, technology that could control gravity itself. This could revolutionize everything, Dr. Jean told his team as they successfully lifted a 10-ton object using a device smaller than a microwave oven.
From space travel to energy production.
The team celebrated their success that night, unaware they were being watched.
3 days later, as Dr. Jean worked late in his laboratory, the lights flickered.
The security system went offline for exactly 6 minutes.
When it returned, nothing seemed amiss.
But a small device had been planted near the main gravitics testing chamber.
The next morning, as the team prepared for their daily tests, the device activated. The explosion destroyed half the facility. 17 scientists died instantly. 43 others, including Dr. Jean, were severely injured.
In his hospital bed, face wrapped in burned bandages, Dr. Jean watched the news reports.
Confederation representatives expressed deep concern about the unfortunate accident at the research facility.
They offered medical assistance, which Earth's leadership politely declined. 1 week later, Dr. Jean appeared at a press conference. He slowly unwrapped the bandages from his face, revealing red, scarred tissue.
Cameras from around the world captured the moment.
This was no accident, he said, his voice steady despite his pain. Our security systems recorded the presence of Sylvan technology in the debris. They sabotaged us because they fear what we've discovered. He paused, looking directly into the cameras. They fear what they cannot control. The images spread across the globe. Public demonstrations erupted outside Confederation embassy compounds. In orbit, Earthships began positioning themselves between Confederation observers and the planet. Admiral Hannah implemented new security protocols at all research facilities. They've shown their true intentions, she told her officers. We must protect our people and our discoveries. The Confederation High Council sent a formal message 2 weeks after the explosion. Their language was diplomatic, but their meaning clear: Earth's development of gravitic technology violated the terms of their protection agreement.
All research materials must be surrendered for proper oversight and guidance.
President Kim called an emergency session of the World Leadership Council. "This is not a request," said Defense Director Park, now in her 7th year of service.
"It's an ultimatum.
Surrender our most promising technology or face their version of punishment."
Admiral Hanna stood.
"The Sylvan killed our people because we dared to advance too quickly. If we surrender now, we accept their right to determine our future forever."
The debate lasted 18 hours. Some nations favored compromise.
Others demanded resistance.
In the end, Earth's response was composed of a single sentence.
Earth respectfully declines to surrender technologies developed independently by human scientists. The Confederation ships in orbit immediately changed formation.
Their communications ceased. Instead of scattered observation posts, they formed a blockade pattern.
In the command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Hanna watched the tactical display with grim determination. "And so it begins," she said quietly.
"Prepare all defense systems. The real test of humanity is about to start."
The Sylvan Confederation's response to Earth's refusal came swiftly. Within days, their ships in Earth orbit repositioned themselves into a military formation.
All cultural and diplomatic personnel were evacuated. Communication channels went silent.
Earth's military leaders weren't surprised. They had been preparing for this possibility since the Seoul Research Center bombing. What they didn't expect was the scale of the Confederation's response.
Long-range telescopes detected a massive fleet assembling near Jupiter.
Over 100 Sylvan warships, far more than the observation vessels Earth had grown accustomed to, gathered in formation. Their communication, intercepted by Earth's intelligence services, spoke of a peacekeeping operation to stabilize the human situation.
"They're not coming to talk," Admiral Hanna told the emergency session of the World Security Council. "They're coming to take what they want and ensure we can never resist again."
The nations of Earth, despite their historic differences, faced a choice: submit or fight together. China and the United States, economic rivals for decades, jointly announced the transfer of their space forces to the newly formed United Earth Defense Command. The European Union, African Alliance, and South American Federation quickly followed.
Admiral Hanna took command of Earth's combined fleet, 36 combat-ready vessels and another 42 hastily armed research and mining ships. They established a defensive line at the edge of the inner solar system, between Mars and the asteroid belt.
Meanwhile, Captain Sun of the UES Dauntless led a small advance force to the Kuiper Belt, the distant region of ice and rock at the solar system's edge.
His mission: early warning and, if possible, delaying action. "We're picking up gravitational distortions," reported the Dauntless sensor officer. "Confederation ships dropping out of FTL drive."
Captain Sun watched as the enemy fleet materialized.
First 10 ships, then 30, then over 100.
The Sylvan vessels were elegant and deadly, with smooth lines and weapon systems that made Earth's best technology look primitive.
A transmission came through on all frequencies. "Attention human vessels. You are instructed to power down and prepare for boarding. This action is for your protection and the stability of this sector."
Captain Sun, a calm man who had once been a physics teacher before joining the space service, looked around at his crew. They were young, many serving their first mission. But in their eyes, he saw determination, not fear.
He opened a channel. "This is Captain Sun of the United Earth ship Dauntless. We acknowledge your presence in our home system."
He paused, knowing his next words would likely start a war.
"We will not surrender our sovereignty. This system belongs to humanity.
You have no authority here."
The Sylvan commander's response was immediate. "Your defiance is noted. Please be informed that resistance will be met with appropriate force." 3 Sylvan cruisers broke formation, accelerating toward the small Earth squadron. Their weapon systems powered up. "All ships, execute pattern chaos," ordered Captain Sun. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations.
The Earthships, instead of retreating or forming a defensive line as the Sylvan expected, scattered in seemingly random directions. Then, using the gravity of nearby Kuiper belt objects, they executed a series of slingshot maneuvers that sent them hurtling toward the Sylvan vessels from multiple angles. The maneuvers were dangerous, pushing the structural limits of the human vessels.
2 ships broke apart under the strain. But the surviving ships achieved what conventional engines could not: approach speeds that gave the more primitive human weapons enough kinetic energy to damage Sylvan shields. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Dauntless was destroyed, but not before Captain Sun transmitted complete sensor data back to Earth. 5 other human ships were lost. But they managed to disable 2 Sylvan cruisers and damage several others before the surviving Earth vessels escaped into the darkness of the outer solar system. When the data reached Earth, Admiral Hannah immediately understood its significance. The Sylvan ships were powerful but predictable. Their tactical systems, while advanced, followed patterns that could be analyzed and countered. They rely too heavily on their AI combat systems, she told her command staff. And those systems have never encountered human fighting styles before. Over the next week, as the main Sylvan fleet approached the inner solar system, Hannah implemented what she called Chaos Protocol. Earthships would not fight according to conventional military doctrine. Each captain received mission objectives but complete freedom in how to achieve them. Fight like humans, were her final instructions. Be unpredictable. Be creative. Make them wonder what you'll do next. As the first major battle loomed near Mars, a message from Captain Sun, recorded before his ship's destruction, was broadcast to every human on Earth and throughout the solar system. We fight not just for our lives or our planet, but for humanity's right to determine its own destiny. We may be technologically outmatched, but we will never be outmatched in courage or creativity. Remember, they expect us to think like them. Our greatest weapon is that we don't. Across Earth, former enemy nations stood united for the first time in human history. Russian and American aerospace engineers worked side by side to upgrade defensive systems. Chinese and Indian troops trained together for possible ground invasion. A single flag, a blue earth on a black field with white stars, flew above every military installation. The spark of war had been lit. Humanity would either emerge united and free, or cease to exist as a sovereign species. The Battle of Mars lasted 7 days. When it ended, 13 Confederation vessels had been destroyed, along with 22 Earthships. The humans had lost the battle but shocked the Sylvan commanders. The Sylvan had expected Earth to surrender after the first show of superior force. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to grow more determined with each defeat. High Commander Vex of the Sylvan Fleet sent an encrypted message to the Confederation High Council: humans do not respond to military setbacks as expected. Where other species become cautious after losses, humans become more aggressive. Request full war authorization. The Council's response was immediate. The human situation was upgraded from a peacekeeping action to a full military campaign. 200 more warships were dispatched from across Confederation space. On Earth, Admiral Hannah received the intelligence with grim determination. They're bringing their full force to bear, she told the Defense Council. We cannot match them ship for ship. Defense Director Park asked the question everyone was thinking: can we win this war? Admiral Hannah's response was measured. Not conventionally. But humans have never been conventional warriors. The next phase of the conflict centered on Earth's outer colonies. Small settlements on Europa, Titan, and several large asteroids housed nearly 30,000 civilians. The Confederation expected these outposts to be abandoned as humans pulled back to defend Earth. They were wrong. The colonists refused evacuation. Instead, they transformed their mining equipment into makeshift weapons. Civilian ships became improvised combat vessels. When Sylvan forces approached Europa colony, they encountered not a defenseless outpost but a hornet's nest of resistance. Colonel Yun commanded the meager military detachment at Europa. With only 2 proper combat ships and 100 trained soldiers, she organized the 3,000 colonists into an effective fighting force. Mining lasers were repurposed as anti-ship weapons. Ice tunneling machines became burrowing devices to create hidden bunkers. The Sylvan approached with 6 destroyer-class vessels, expecting minimal resistance. The battle that followed would become legendary.
Yun's forces allowed the first Sylvan ships to land troops before springing their trap.
Tunnels collapsed beneath Sylvan ground forces.
Improvised explosives detonated in strategic patterns.
Human defenders appeared and disappeared in the icy terrain they knew intimately. After 3 days, the Sylvan withdrew from Europa's surface, having lost over 60% of their landing force. Their after-action report contained a note that would circulate widely through Confederation Command: humans become different creatures when defending their young. Standard pacification protocols are ineffective. While the outer colonies fought desperate holding actions, Earth unveiled its secret weapon. For 3 years, hidden in an underwater facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Jean and a team of scientists had continued their work on gravitics technology. While the Confederation believed they had destroyed all advanced research in the Soul bombing, the truth was more complex. Dr. Jean had created something the Confederation thought impossible: a human-designed FTL, faster-than-light, drive that used principles different from Confederation technology. While Sylvan ships folded space in controlled patterns, the human drive created what Jean called a gravitational slip, less predictable but potentially faster. Commander Du led the secret fleet, 15 ships equipped with the experimental drive.
They had trained in the shadow of Saturn, hidden from Confederation sensors.
Now they prepared for humanity's most daring gambit.
All ships, prepare for gravitational slip, ordered Commander Du.
Destination: Sylvan Home System. The jump took 20 seconds.
When complete, Du's fleet found themselves in orbit around the primary Sylvan colony world, a place no human had ever seen.
Their arrival set off panic across the planet below.
The Sylvan had never imagined humans could strike directly at their core worlds.
But Du's mission wasn't primarily military.
As Sylvan defense ships scrambled to respond, her fleet began broadcasting on all Confederation frequencies. The content, evidence of Sylvan manipulation of other Confederation species, gathered from captured databases during the Battle of Mars. To all members of the Galactic Confederation, began the message. For centuries, you have been controlled through fear and misinformation. The Sylvan have deliberately restricted technology sharing, manipulated interspecies conflicts, and maintained their dominance through deception rather than merit. The broadcasts included proof that the Sylvan had sabotaged technological development on at least 7 other worlds when those species threatened to advance too quickly. The Sol Research Center bombing was just the latest in a long pattern. Within the Confederation Council, representatives of the Dorvani and Mithran species, long-standing junior members, demanded explanations. 3 other species called for immediate peace negotiations with humans.
The unified Confederation response began to fracture.
On the front lines, individual ship captains from non-Sylvan species began questioning orders.
Some refused to fire on human civilian targets. Others simply withdrew from battle zones, claiming technical difficulties.
As Commander Du's fleet slipped back to Earth space after their daring raid, they left behind a Confederation in growing disarray. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humans were not merely surviving, they were changing the very nature of the conflict. They never understood us, Commander Du told her crew as they prepared to jump home.
And that will be their downfall.
They see us as primitive and chaotic.
They don't realize that's our greatest strength. 1 year into the war, Earth's situation remained precarious.
Half the colonies had fallen. The orbital shipyards around Mars lay in ruins.
Billions huddled in underground shelters as Confederation bombardments struck major cities.
Yet something remarkable had happened to humanity. Ancient hatreds and rivalries had dissolved in the face of extinction. Where once nations had hoarded resources and technology, now they shared freely.
Scientists who once competed now collaborated.
In a hidden facility beneath the Antarctic ice, Fleet Commander Day reviewed the final preparations for Operation Prometheus. A soldier from birth, he had once commanded South Korean space forces. Now he led ships from 37 nations.
All fleet elements report ready, Commander, said his communications officer. Day nodded. And the new drives?
Dr. Jean reports all 143 ships have been successfully fitted with second-generation gravitational slip drives.
For months, humans had been building ships in secret locations across the solar system. The Confederation believed they had contained Earth's resistance to a few desperate holdouts. They were wrong. Admiral Hannah's voice came through on the command channel.
Though separated by thousands of miles, she commanding from the lunar base, he from Antarctica, her presence filled the room.
It's time, Commander. Launch Operation Prometheus. Throughout the solar system, hidden shipyards activated.
Vessels that had been carefully shielded from Confederation sensors powered up.
One by one, they slipped into the gravitational dimension that Dr. Jean had discovered. Their destination, Alpha Centauri, where the Confederation maintained its forward command base for the Earth campaign. The Sylvan High Commander received the alert with disbelief. Impossible. They cannot have that many ships. And they cannot reach Alpha Centauri without passing our blockade. But the sensors did not lie. 143 Earth vessels had appeared within the Alpha Centauri system.
And they moved differently than before, faster, more coordinated.
As the two fleets closed for battle, Admiral Hannah's voice broadcast on all frequencies, both human and Confederation.
Attention Confederation forces.
We did not seek this war, but we will end it.
You came to our home as conquerors disguised as friends. You killed our people when we developed technology you feared. You expected us to submit.
You never understood what humans truly are.
She paused, and when she continued, her voice grew stronger.
We are not merely fighters. We are protectors. We are builders. We are explorers.
Today you will see our true nature unleashed. The battle that followed would be studied for centuries.
Smaller and technically inferior, the human fleet should have been quickly destroyed.
Instead, they fought with a coordination that baffled Confederation tacticians. Ships from nations that had been bitter enemies just a year earlier now protected each other with selfless courage.
American cruisers took hits meant for Chinese destroyers. Russian gunships provided cover for Japanese transports.
Each captain seemed to anticipate the needs of others without communication. Fleet Commander Day directed the battle with calm precision.
Group Theta, protect Brazilian squadron's flank.
Indian Division, prepare to execute Maneuver Shiva on my mark. 4 hours into the battle, a civilian Confederation transport vessel, carrying refugees from a nearby mining colony, drifted into the crossfire.
Sylvan commanders calculated acceptable losses and continued their attack pattern. What happened next shocked watching Confederation species.
3 human destroyers broke formation to place themselves between the civilian ship and incoming fire.
2 were destroyed in the process.
The third managed to extend its shields around the transport, saving over 2,000 non-combatants. The Dorvan ships in the Confederation fleet hesitated, then stopped firing entirely.
What are you doing? Demanded the Sylvan commander.
Observing, came the reply. They protect our civilians at cost to themselves.
This is not the behavior of the savages you described.
One by one, ships from the Dorvan, Mithran, and 3 other species withdrew from the battle line.
Some simply ceased fire.
Others actively moved to protect human vessels from Sylvan attacks. The Confederation battle line collapsed. After 6 more hours, the Sylvan commander sent the surrender signal. As human boarding parties secured Confederation vessels, they found wounded Sylvan soldiers expecting execution.
Instead, human medics provided treatment alongside their own wounded.
"Why do you help us?" asked a Sylvan officer as a human doctor treated his injuries.
"Because that's what humans do," the doctor replied simply. "We fight when we must. We heal when we can."
2 weeks later, representatives from Earth and all 27 Confederation species gathered at the neutral station orbiting Alpha Centauri. The Sylvan, for the first time in 15,000 years, did not sit at the head of the chamber. The Dorvan ambassador addressed the assembly. "They could have destroyed us, but chose not to. Perhaps we misjudged them." Admiral Hannah proposed a restructuring of the Confederation: equal representation for all species, shared technology development, and mutual defense truly meant to protect, not control. As she and former enemy commander Lith of the Sylvan signed the new treaty, Lith made an observation that would be remembered throughout the galaxy.
"We thought your weapons were what made you dangerous. We never understood that your greatest strength was your capacity to be both warriors and healers. The war had cost humanity dearly. Millions had died. Cities lay in ruins. Yet as the first ships from other worlds arrived to help rebuild Earth, something new emerged from the ashes, a humanity united not just with itself but with the greater galactic community. Dr. Jean, watching alien and human engineers working together to restore Sol, smiled despite his scars. They came to control us and found they couldn't. Instead, they learned from us that true strength comes not from domination but cooperation. The galaxy had learned that humans' greatest weapon was never their technology, but their capacity for both ruthless determination and profound compassion. And in that paradox lay a power no species had expected to find among the stars.
The end.